The time has finally come to say goodbye to our long-term 2022 F-150 Lightning. In this video, I'm going to give you my final thoughts, what I liked, what I didn't like about it, why this wins the award for the Auto Buyer's Guide Truck of the Year for 2022, but why I don't think this truck ends up being right for me somehow simultaneously. First, let's talk about the Lightning. This is a bonkers, full electric half-ton truck. So this is not a tinier truck like a Rivian. It's not a plug-in hybrid like we see from some other companies out there. This is a full electric truck from the company that makes the most trucks, period, in America. But it's also a bonkers truck. 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds, 10,000 pounds of towing capability, theoretically 320 miles of range, 400 pounds of storage availability in the front trunk, which is always handy, 580 horsepower, 775 pound-feet of torque, and definitely one whopping price tag. Inside the front trunk, which has to be the single best feature of the Lightning, I'll talk about that more in a bit, I happen to have my original window sticker here. Now, this particular model MSRP'd for $81,184. But for 2023, the price has gone way, way up. And now this identically configured F-150 Lightning, assuming you could even get your hands on a 2023, it's gonna set you back $89,790. And the biggest price increase really has happened on the absolute base version with the smallest battery pack. That one is now $51,974, and the Platinum trim, of course, is going to be a lot more expensive. The good news is that even though pricing has gone absolutely bonkers crazy, availability probably will be better in 2023 because Ford is seriously ramping up production of their electric vehicles, and that includes the Mach-E and the Lightning, so definitely lots more Lightnings are rolling onto the scene than we're finding Rivian R1Ts from Rivian. So if you want an electric truck, this is going to be produced in greater volume in 2023 than it was in 2024. And that's really what we're seeing right now as far as used car values go. I have no idea exactly what this is going to end up being sold for. It's probably going to be listed for sale right around the $81,000 mark. So not the kind of crazy oversales experience that we're still seeing with Rivian R1Ts, simply because Ford is just making a lot more Lightnings. And in many ways, I think this is a better truck. Now, as an EV, there are some questions, but as a truck, this is undeniably the better truck. The thing I love most about the Lightning is something that a lot of people tend to make fun of. The Lightning is in some ways a converted F-150 and in some ways a unique vehicle related to the F-150 depending on how you want to look at it. This has a unique frame, unique sheet metal up front, and unique sheet metal in the rear, but logically there is a lot of sharing going on with the regular gasoline F-150, and they wanted this to look like an F-150, which is why we have this enormous front trunk, another one of my huge hits here. We have grocery bag holders in here, we have power outlets, it's a very convenient thing. You can also hose out the front trunk, which is another really cool thing that you can't do with most vehicles that have a front trunk. And Ford says the floor is rated for 400 pounds, and I have definitely used that. Ford says you can put concrete bags in there. I actually put concrete blocks quite often in mine. That's why there's some scuffing right there on that floor. Obviously, that's going to have to be noted on the sales, advertisement for this vehicle, but lots of practical storage capability in the front trunk area. And again, it looks like an F-150. This may sound like a strange advantage, but there really is one. A lot of the accessories that you might want in your truck, and a lot of truck owners like to put accessories in their vehicle, will bolt right onto this. The wheels have the same offset and bolt pattern that we find in other F-150s. Even though we have a different step here on the side, you can bolt any F-150's side step onto a Lightning. You can bolt aftermarket rock rails, things like that, right onto there as well. And then we have the bed. It looks very much like a regular F-150 bed, but the sheet metal on the outside is unique to the Lightning, but the sheet metal on the inside is not. And depending on the version you get, the tailgate may or may not be unique. The upper end trims get this little cutout right here for the lights to give it a different vibe, but the base model uses a regular F-150 tailgate. And all the components here, from the hinges, the power mechanism, etc., even the integrated step, they're all right out of a regular F-150, as is, of course, the mounting points for things like optional tonneau covers. I ended up getting this cover right here. It's one of these Velcro-y, rolly kind of ones because it improves aerodynamics, it helps keep the bed a little bit cleaner, and this was insanely cheap. It definitely has an impact on range in the Lightning, a positive one. Highway range is improved by about 6 to 10% depending on the speed you're going. And of course, it keeps your cargo nice and dry. But this is a huge advantage because I just ordered one off the internet. And which one did I get? I got the cheapest one I could find, because there are tons of cheap ones since there are millions and millions of F-150s on the road. And then there's the bed itself. It's identical to a regular F-150 on the inside. So if it fits in the bed of an F-150, it's gonna work over here. Toolboxes, camper tops, whatever you wanna stick on your F-150 Lightning, it's all gonna work. Now, Ford says you shouldn't put a camper on the back of your Lightning. Obviously, people have done that and it seems to work just fine. And again, if it fits in an F-150 bed, it's gonna fit in here. Even details right down to the LED lights in here are the same. And of course, the power outlets on the other side. The outlets in the bed are identical to the F-150 hybrid. There are two different 20 amp 120 volt circuits and then a 30 amp 240 volt circuit behind that little door. These are powered by an onboard 7.2 kilowatt inverter. The outlets in the front trunk are powered by a separate 2.4 kilowatt inverter. Because the Lightning has an absolutely massive battery pack on board, 131 kilowatt hours for this version, you can power your accessories till the cows come home. Whether that is a job site where you don't have power available, or a farm or a ranch setup where you need to power things in the field, or you simply want to back up your fridge in a power outage for days and days at a time. If you want to offboard over 9 kilowatts to your home and back up the entire home, that is a separate thing, and that will require some additional purchases. It's going to be about $6,000 plus installation or so for that kit, but it will be more automatic. As long as your Ford truck is plugged into the station at home, and that 80 amp EVSE station does come with the big battery pack vehicle, then it will automatically back up your home if the power goes out. That's one of the coolest features about the Lightning. I love the fact that Ford built an electric vehicle and then they thought, this thing has an enormous battery, how else can we use it? But I also love the fact that Ford gave us everything that you get on a regular F-150 in the Lightning as well. Unique features like the onboard scales functionality that tells you how much stuff you have in your truck is here. We have the smart hitch functionality, the towing functionality, etc. We even have the Pro Trailer backup widget there on the dash if that's something that you're interested in. All of that's here. And then things that I hadn't really considered before, like I never found this fold flat dashy or center console thing very useful until it was in an electric truck. Now you have somewhere to work or use your iPad while you're DC fast charging the truck. That's really cool, and it's something that I always thought was a little bit funny in the gasoline truck. And of course, like it or not, the F-150's entire interior is on display here. So we have the dual glove box setup that we find in a regular F-150. These sort of imitation tortoiseshell accents right there on the door that we find in a regular F-150. The same heated and ventilated seats with available massage if you get the top-end Platinum version. Lots of cup holders everywhere. The steering wheel is the same thickly rimmed design we find in other F-150s. We have that large LCD instrument cluster behind it. It's power adjustable and memory linked, which is a nice touch. Also power adjustable and memory linked are the pedals. So if you're a shorter or taller person, keep in mind this is one of the very few vehicles available in North America that has power adjustable pedals, and it's the only EV that does. Then just lots of really handy, cool truck features, like all the various lighting zones around the vehicle. You can turn lights off individually with those. You can also control the zone lighting in that infotainment system. And as we move around the truck, it's obvious that Ford builds trucks. And this is not meant to be a slam on Rivian, but it's obvious in comparison that Rivian is not a company that is used to building trucks. We find things like the step here, the power up and power down tailgate. We also find camera positions that are more useful for trailering, like the cameras up here, not down here, so you can actually see what's going on there with your hitch. We have 4-pin and 7-pin wiring harness connections, a hitch that's easily accessible, and then of course this has the max tow package, which will give you that 10,000 pounds of trailering ability. And then Ford has blended that with a few electric-specific touches, like the unique tailgate here with this big light bar, because every EV has to have a big light bar, of course. They've relocated the backup lights to right there, but we still have a metal bumper down here with well-integrated parking sensors just above it. The bed is still a separate piece from the cab because this is a body-on-frame truck, not like the unibody Silverado EV and Sierra EV and Hummer EV from General Motors. Those are all built on a new unibody truck platform. And even though I don't find that to be a particular problem, some folks are a little bit disturbed by that, and if you just want a body-on-frame thing, that's exactly what this is. The frame is unique to the Lightning, but the cab is identical to a regular F-150 cab, and again, the bed is only slightly changed. Now, early on, some EV fans thought that this would actually be a disadvantage for the Lightning because supposedly unibody vehicles could be lighter. Well, that doesn't appear to be the case. This is considerably lighter than the Hummer EV. This is actually about the same kind of curb weight that we find in the Rivian. Now, the Rivian does have the ability to have a really huge battery pack, definitely larger than this one, so if you want to go theoretically 400 miles on a charge, you should wait till that model comes out. It's probably going to happen sometime next year. Theoretically, you'll be able to get 400 miles of charge. This one, theoretically 320, but we should talk about that. When creating the Lightning, I think Ford wanted this to be a truck first and EV second, and that really does show in a lot of the design. They could have made the front end a lot more aerodynamic, dropped the front end down drastically, something like that, that could have improved range. And we, of course, still have metal bumpers front and rear, like I mentioned before. This is not the most aerodynamic EV on sale in America, and out on the highway, you could experience range down to about 250, 260 miles of real-world driving. Even the EPA highway estimate for this very Lightning, which is horribly optimistic because it has an average speed of under 50 miles an hour, this one comes in at just 283 miles of all-electric range. 320 miles is your combined range based on 55% of the city cycle. And I don't know about you, but when I think about how far a vehicle can go, I don't want to know how many times it can do loops around Manhattan. I want to know, can it get me from point A to point B out on the open highway? And if that's the kind of range you're thinking of, then the answer for this is 250 to 260 miles. Then we talk about towing. Obviously, towing is going to drop that range down. You should experience between a 40 and 50% drop in range. There's a separate video on that if you haven't already checked that out, so be sure and do that. You can experience range down to about 150 to 180 miles, depending on exactly what kind of towing you're doing. Trailer weight is not as important as the aerodynamic profile of the trailer. I actually ended up getting very similar efficiency ratings with a 9,000-pound trailer on the back of this and a 3,000-pound box trailer, because the box trailer is just way less aerodynamic. Efficiency and range may not be the Lightning's strong suit, but interior volume sure is. This has one of the most comfortable and one of the biggest back seats available, and that's part of why half-ton trucks have become so popular in the United States. If you're looking at a half-ton truck and you're doing mainly hauling around town, home improvement, things like that, maybe occasional camping, this is going to be an excellent option if you have some charging infrastructure nearby your destination, that sort of thing. We don't find the same kind of vampire drain that we find in the Rivian R1T, so those longer camping journeys, I wouldn't have any concerns at all. Arriving to that campsite with half of a battery left and needing 20% to get home, not a problem at all in the Lightning. It uses incredibly little power while it's off. Also, if you don't generally tow very far, the Lightning will probably be just fine. Now for me, I end up towing longer distances. The Lightning would be a little bit tricky for me to integrate. I do tend to tow 300 to 400 miles at least once or twice a year. And in those situations, this would be a real bummer because the charging times are kind of long and public DC fast charging infrastructure just isn't quite there. Also, Ford's very conservative on the battery. Even though this has one of the largest batteries available in the US, and generally speaking, battery charge rates are a factor of the size of the battery and the number of cells, this pack does not charge as rapidly as I would like. I would have loved to have seen Ford give this 250 to 300 kilowatt DC fast charging capability, but this is in reality under 200 kilowatts peak, and it will take about 45 minutes to go 10% to 80%, about 2 hours if you want to take this from 0 all the way to 100%. That will take a decent amount of time. Also, the Lightning does not have a heat pump, so if you live in a colder climate, you might want to think twice. But let's be real, the vast majority of Lightnings are going to be purchased by people that live in the city. California is by far the largest market for electric vehicles, and in this climate, the Lightning is going to be just fine. Declaring the Lightning Truck of the Year and simultaneously saying that it's being listed for sale may sound a bit like do as I say, not as I do, but that is kind of the point of long-term testing vehicles like the Lightning. I did not buy this because I thought it would be the world's best fit for me. I live off-grid, so power consumption is kind of a problem. Also, tighter roads make half-ton trucks a little bit tricky. I got this because a lot of folks wanted us to do some testing and other reviews that I simply could not do if we didn't own the Lightning. Now I can tell you what it's like to have one and really live with one for a number of months. But without a doubt, the Lightning is the most impressive truck I have driven this year. A lot of synergies I hadn't expected really come out between this and the regular F-150. The fact that we have all aluminum construction in the Lightning is because we have all aluminum construction in the F-150, and it serves the same purpose in both vehicles. It makes it lighter while giving you the capability that you'd expect out of a truck, and that yields greater efficiency than you might expect. If this had been an all-steel truck, its efficiency numbers would probably be way down there with the Hummer EV, which is a steel truck, and it's fantastically heavy and fantastically inefficient compared to the F-150 Lightning. Real-world range of that Hummer is going to be way below this, and it has a battery pack that is truly massive. That battery in the Hummer weighs more than a Honda Civic. This is considerably smaller and considerably lighter as well. But bottom line, I never anticipated keeping the Lightning because that's not why I buy vehicles for long-term tests here at Auto Buyer's Guide, EV Buyer's Guide, and Alex on Autos. We buy vehicles because we think they're of interest to you, the viewer, and a lot of people reached out and said, hey, are you going to try and get an F-150 Lightning? I want to know X, Y, and Z. And we could not answer all of those questions if we had simply borrowed one from Ford for a week. So some things you just have to buy the vehicle and decide how it works for you long term. We wouldn't have been able to do things like installing a tonneau cover and do back-to-back testing as far as efficiency goes to find out exactly what kind of efficiency improvements you can expect with a cover like that on your truck. And now we know the answer is just under 10%, depending on your driving situation. So stay tuned. This is going to be replaced by likely some more affordable plug-in hybrid vehicles next year. I want to try perhaps something like a Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid, or maybe some other sort of 3-row plug-in hybrid crossover. Sound off down there in the comment section if you're interested in that. And of course, if you're interested in what I think is the best pickup truck in America right now, with a lot of asterisks, take a look at the F-150 Lightning. I think this was an impressive engineering job, and it's also a really solid truck, as long as your need cases are met by the Lightning, and that's something that I cannot repeat often enough. A lot of folks assume that if you love the Lightning, you just have to say it's best for everybody. That is not the case. This is not going to work for people that don't have the ability to charge it or don't want to charge it, etc. If that describes you, don't buy one, buy something else. Buy the regular F-150 because it's a solid truck as well. Or if you want some of the capabilities of this, as far as like the off-board power, etc., you could get yourself the F-150 hybrid, and that's certainly going to be a lot less expensive. See all of you later.